Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and this is our final episode of the spring term, and who better to spend it with than Student Engagement Director Adrienne Thoman. Adrienne, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Since this is our last podcast episode, I did want to, and we were just talking about this off air, I did want to let everybody know that we will be celebrating our 100th episode of the Nightly News Podcast during our summer term. It'll be our last podcast, and tentatively at this point, it is scheduled to release on August the 27th. So stay tuned. We might be having a special party for those who have been on the podcast over the last 100 episodes. Adrienne, we've been doing this since like 2016. It's just, we're so much more regular now. You know, when we first started doing it, we were kind of just winging it and kind of just, you know, putting a 20-minute out here and there. But once we started getting to like episode 20 is really when we started hitting our stride. I got to the point where we were releasing them at a fixed increment, so we do weeks 1 through 8 each term, and then we take off, you know, through finals and break, and then we come back the following term. So we're doing 8 per term, so it'd be 32 per year, and we've been doing that for basically the last 2 years. So I just want to thank you, and of course we'll have plenty of thank yous going forward, but you have been our most prolific guest. We have you on each and every month, and I don't know what we would do without you, Adrienne, because we got to make sure that people know what's going on around campus, because heaven forbid they say that there's nothing to do around here.
It's so not true.
That has got to drive you insane.
A little bit.
You've heard students say that?
I do, but you know what I think? That calendar that I make, I give it to one student and they're like, wow, there's so much to do. And then I give it to a different student and they're, oh, there's nothing to do. And I think, did I give them a different calendar? No, there's lots to do. You just have to be open to doing different things, maybe things that you're not sure you're going to like, but you might love at the end.
Seeing as it's your job to set up the activities calendar, doesn't it offend you in a certain way if people say that there's nothing to do? You're like, wait, this is my job to give you things to do.
Well, you know what I love, though? When people are like, oh, there's nothing to do, or, oh, I don't want to do that. And then I actually convince them to do said thing that they were sure they were going to hate, and they really like it. Well, I love that.
I'll give you a perfect example of that is some of the leadership retreats. I'm positive some of the people that you've invited to that, and I know you were actually seeking people out, they might have been, I'm not really sure about that, but I guarantee you 100% of the people that have gone on both the women's and men's leadership retreats over the year just came back with such a positive experience.
100%. This last time, there were students that were very, I don't think I want to go, very unsure, very not sure that they wanted to be a part of it. And they loved it. We all had an amazing time. So step outside of your comfort zone, everybody. It's worth it.
I appreciate that. All right. Well, we are going to talk about June events in our final podcast here today. As always, a ton of things going on the June activity calendar. Well, one of the things that was coming up here very soon that I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about is the research exhibition. That's going to take place on June 5th in the Conference Center from 3 to 5 p.m. But Adrienne, the reason that I wanted to talk to you about this is to talk to you a little bit more about some of the research the Nightly News is doing.
Which I'm excited to hear. I know a little tiny bit about this, but I'm dying to hear results.
I will give you as much as I can. I still do want to make it, for those who do attend the research exhibition, I still want to make it some surprises.
No spoilers.
So, well, I can't promise. There probably will be some spoilers, but I'll try to limit them. So basically, where this all came from, Adrienne, was, and I know I've talked about this part before, so I'll make this brief. I was teaching media and politics. During the course, we certainly talked about the textbook and political communication, things like that. But we also, what I tried to do is I tried to educate some of the students in civic issues, whether that be the national debt, military spending, and of course, one of them was the environment. And one of the things that I found out, and most of the students, it was an on-ground class, most of the students were residential students. And what I realized was that almost none of the students in my class were recyclers. And then I started to inquire why that was, and I came to learn that I want to preface this by saying there is recycling in the residential areas, okay? But where there were some issues, I guess, for lack of a better term, is that there was nothing inside the suite for them to be able to separate out. And honestly, from the student's perspective, most of the stuff just ended up being put into the trash and thrown into the dumpster. So one of the things that I thought was, okay, let's inquire about, hey, can we even get them just small bins just for even plastic and cans? And apparently what I found out was that was offered in the past, and it just didn't get a whole lot of traction. So here's what the Nightly News thought. We would like to do a survey with as many residential students as we possibly can. And right now, we put together a survey with the help of Samantha Bice in the library. She's awesome. And Brian Christiana Dylan Kleintop really did an amazing job rounding up the students, getting them to take just a quick 3-question survey. And basically, here were the 3 questions. Do you think that, the first question was, how much do you currently recycle? Everything, most things, some things, or nothing? Okay. The second question was, do you think that a bin inside of the suite would encourage additional recycling? And then the third question was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you personally value recycling? I'm just going to summarize this. I will certainly, if I see you at the research exhibition, I will go into much more detail. But basically, to summarize, about 85% of the students said that they would and do think that something inside the suite would increase recycling. About 85% of them said
that's a big
yes
number.
Or maybe. Most of the students, so it's almost a fairly even split. It was about 25, 20, 30, 35 in as far as the 4, but about a quarter of our students do not recycle at all on campus. And about 35% or more recycle everything. So that kind of turned out how I thought it would. But the most eye-opening of everything, Adrienne, was the final question. How much do you value recycling? About 85% on that scale of from 1 to 10 said 7, 8, 9, or 10 is how much they value recycling. So what I'm taking away from this is our students want to recycle, they value recycling, and they believe that if there was a bin in their house, it would be more recycling. And I'm hoping I'm happy to see that our students are at least have it in them to care about recycling.
Absolutely.
So that's where we are. So our next steps is after we present at the Research Exhibition Day on June 5th, we are going to come to the June Green Team meeting and try to figure out how we can potentially implement this. So this has been a really wonderful experience. We've got well over a 50% response rate of all the residential students. So I wanted to get 100%, but that was very challenging in a 3-week period. So, but honestly, Adrienne, without your support, this wouldn't have been possible. Ideally, we would have been okay with however it turned out, although I think deep down inside, we're extremely happy that our students care about recycling. And these bins, I mean, we've priced them relatively inexpensive and something that we really hope to make happen for summer, especially with all the new students coming up in summer and fall.
I was so bummed when our Student Government Association had some extra funds at the end of last calendar year, and we're really hoping to get a bill through to be able to purchase some of those bins, and the traction just did not take hold, and we weren't able to get it passed to make that happen. So I definitely am excited to see this data and see where we can take it and hopefully get this accomplished.
And the most important thing here to note, Adrienne, is that we are certainly not the only people in the research exhibition. This is always one of my favorite days each year at the research exhibition, because one of the greatest things about, doing research at the college level is being able to share that research with other people. And as I mentioned, one of actually kind of the negative things about doing research at the college level is often that research is between you, the student doing it and the professor. To be honest with you, and I almost always make them do presentations because I want them to, at a minimum, to at least be able to share that with their classmates. But that doesn't always happen, especially maybe in some online classes that the paper just goes to the professor. So it doesn't always work out that way. So that's why I love the research exhibition.
You know what I'm not doing at the research exhibition this year?
What's that?
Judging.
Oh, why?
I hate it. I love them all, and I get excited to see what everybody's doing. I am a bad judge because I don't like to be critical of them. I'm always proud of what they're doing.
Well, one of the most important things is to give constructive feedback. So that's always a good thing. Hey, but I mean, you're a professor. You do that in your classes.
I know, but
all right.
I just like to go and celebrate them.
Just one final plug. The Research Exhibition Day will be June 5th in the Conference Center from 3 to 5 p.m. Come on out and see what our students have been up to. Often have free hors d'oeuvres and beverages and things like that. So please come out and join us. Adrienne, the second thing that I wanted to take a look at, just really briefly, is the 5th annual student-created play Lost and Found. That's going to be coming up on Thursday and Friday, June 6th at 7:30, and a special matinee at 2:30 on Saturday.
It's going to be so good.
Now, let me ask you, are you involved in this production?
I am not. I am going to be in the audience cheering like a crazy woman. I cannot wait.
And do you have any future desire to do any of the productions at the theater coming up?
Well, I always enjoy getting involved where I can. I love the lineup of shows. We have a lot of cool things happening the rest of the year. It always depends on kind of what they need and what's happening, and I pop in when I can. But if not, I'm definitely there to cheer and support.
So again, the 6th and 7th of June, Lost and Found, 5th annual student created play at 7:30, and a special matinee on Saturday the 8th. Stay tuned. Janet Bixler and Brianna McCoy and Parker Rose will be coming up later on the podcast to tell us a little bit more about this show. Adrienne, I did want to move to the June 11th, The American Dream, I Am an Entrepreneur. That's going to take place in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. What is this all about?
There is a really cool collaboration with the business department and the activities office. We are working on an entrepreneurship series. So the business department, they are kicking it off with this panel discussion with entrepreneurs from our local area that are going to be sharing their experiences, their expertise. And then actually in the summer term, I'm going to be following it up with 3 additional speakers that will be presenting 3 different evenings, 1 each month. So it's going to be a whole series, lots of fun.
What was the thought process here on starting this type of program?
Honestly, Brianna McCoy, our SGA
Really?
president, was saying something about wanting to learn how to start a business, and it sounded like a good idea. So,
well, and certainly because our business department is such a big part of our campus, plus they offer the Small Business Entrepreneurship Associate's degree as well, I think it makes a lot of sense. Can you give us any sort of behind the curtain about this event coming up on the 11th?
So I know it is the 2nd annual time they've done this. They did do it last year and had a separate group of panelists come in. I believe it was a different topic. It's something they hope to do annually. And this is the first year that I've had the opportunity to tag in along with it and add some additional programming.
Fantastic. So we can look forward to the series continuing in July, August, and September.
Absolutely.
Well, fantastic. Whenever we get back to our next podcast, we can talk to you about what's coming up in the future. All right, Adrienne, one final thing before we get to everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3, is we can't go in the June calendar and not take a look at the Week 11 festivities for Cram Jam. Now, I know that you're still trying to schedule some things, but is there anything you can give the listeners to look forward to for the June 16th Cram Jam from 7 o'clock until ?
Yes. So there will be lots and lots of food, as always. We typically do a midnight movie with some popcorn in our popcorn machine that we pop fresh. We'll have an activity, a make one, take one kind of activity that students will be able to create there and take home with them. And we usually play a lot of games. There are some heated Uno tournaments that go down, very heated.
Did you see the new Uno rules?
What are the ones where you have to the cards do different things now? You have to...
Not that I'm aware of, but what I think that I heard, and I will follow up with this, is that you cannot stack draw 4 cards anymore. So you can't have 3 draw 4 cards and say, I'm out. I just read about it. Yes. I think we should look into this because we have to make sure that at Cram Jam we're playing by the new rules.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure they will be well aware.
All right. Well, Adrienne, it's now time for everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3. Adrienne, what is the first event we're going to take a look at here for June?
So the first one I wanted to shout out about is a student government event. It is the Inner Club Council meeting on June the 11th. So that's kind of an end-of-term celebration. The SGA invites all of our club members and officers to get together and really celebrate the fun things that they've done this term, share what they have coming up. It's a really cool opportunity for our students to get together and talk about collaborations maybe that they're looking forward to doing in the summer term. SGA usually has catering and food for everybody as well, so it's a fun night.
I think the collaborative nature of this is, to me, what could be the most important part about this, because one of the things that I absolutely love that I've really seen happen a lot more over the last year is our clubs teaming up with one another for the betterment of the community, for the betterment of the college campus, or just at a minimum for the betterment of our students. And this is something that Morgan Littleford started, correct?
The ICC meetings?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is now something that Brianna is continuing to do. And when I actually spoke with her today, she says that this is one of the biggest things they're planning each and every term because of this collaborative nature that she sees. And I just hope that from now on, our clubs can really work more together. I mean, that's something even just from the nightly news that we're constantly looking for. We're constantly looking for content. And honestly, Adrienne, outside of this is where we get most of our direction because we can see what's going on. I just wish more clubs would come to us and say, hey, we have this event, help us. Help us promote it. Even if, you just need bodies there to do something or out in the community volunteering. Those are the types of things that I really think can benefit the clubs as a whole. And being as you're the, most prolific club advisor, how many clubs do you advise?
I think 3 right now.
So that's, 3 more than most and 2 more than me. So I think that you can certainly see how the benefit here and how the Interclub Council can really help one another. So that is June 11th from 4 to 6 in the MPR. I really look forward to this. I know Brian will be there, Brian Cristiano, our president. He always goes with lots of fun ideas. So we're looking forward to some more collaboration. All right, Adrienne, what is the second event on Adrienne's Featured 3 for the month of June?
On the third month of the term, it feels that it's necessary to bring the traditional late night breakfast to the top 3. It's something that happens every term, always in week 10. We get our faculty and staff there, and we're going to do it yet again. We've got pancakes, we've got bacon, we've got orange juice, all the goodies for you. 9 p.m. on the 13th of June. And it's just a fun night. I know everybody's going to be stressed and cramming for finals and getting prepped for those. So come out and eat and take a little bit of a mental break. And
there's usually some programming and games and giveaways and things like that. Like the last time I saw, there was a bunch of pictures and a bunch of items that they were giving out.
We
prizes.
Did caricatures last time, which was so fun.
I saw those, and those were really, really cool.
And we did. We had a Play-Doh sculpture competition. I don't know. I have to think of something. Start thinking for something fun to do this one.
Well, I'm positive whatever it is, it will be a wonderful time. Again, June 13th, 9 o'clock, Night and Day Cafe, and that goes till 10:30 p.m. All right, Adrienne, what is the final event on Adrienne's Featured 3 for the month of June?
The final one is going to be June 15th. Our Family Flick series is continuing, and I'm really, really excited about how it's been going. Every month, we bring in a family-friendly film, and we invite our faculty, staff, students, community. Everybody's welcome. The theater is completely open. Everything's free of cost. We have free popcorn there for everybody, too. And it's been super fun. I feel like we've gotten, each time we have been getting a pretty consistent crowd of people coming in. And this month's movie is going to be the Lego Movie, the second part, which I think looks really funny and cute.
I have not. I saw the first one, and I'm looking forward to this. My son just loves these. He's a big Lego fan and loves these movies. So I'm really glad to hear that it's working out. But to be honest, how could it not? It's a free movie, free popcorn. I mean, it's not very often that family-friendly things are free like this. So I really, really hope that this continues to go well.
Yeah.
And I look forward to hearing more about it.
Can I tell you a confession?
Of course.
So every one of these movies so far, every one that we've done, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to let, because I don't really, it's not a genre of movie I don't have kids at home, so I don't typically watch this genre. And every one I go in and I'm like, I guess we'll watch this movie. Every single one so far, I've cried. Every single one.
Well, the last one was A Dog's Way Home, correct?
Yes.
And that was a sad movie? I haven't seen it. No.
I mean, there were some moments, but I mean, literally, Wreck-It Ralph, I cried. I really wasn't expecting that.
I love it.
But they all give me the feels. They're all so good.
Well, Adrienne, I'm just going to recap real quick, and then I have something I just want to chat with you about before we get off the podcast here today. Okay, so let's just take a look at some of the events coming up in June. On June 5th, Research Exhibition Day takes place in the Conference Center from 3 to 5 p.m. Please, everybody, come out. Beverages, hors d'oeuvres, and lots of amazing research from our students. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, June 6, 7, and 8, the 5th annual student-created play Lost and Found will take place in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater, 7:30 on Thursday, Friday, and a special 2:30 matinee on Saturday. On June 11th, from 10:30 to 12:30 a.m., The American Dream, I Am an Entrepreneur, takes place in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. Also later that day on June 11th is the SGA ICC Interclub Council meeting and end-of-term party in the MPR from 4 to 6. Later that week on June 13th, the late night breakfast takes place at the Night and Day Cafe from 9 to 10:30 p.m. And later on that week, on Saturday, June 15th, the family flick series The Lego Movie 2 takes place in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater from 2 to 4 p.m. Finals week kicks off with Cram Jam. That's going to take place in the Underground on June 16th, Sunday, from 7 p.m. until ? Often lasts all night. So, Adrienne, how's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, before we get out of here, something very special in your life happened recently that I would love if you would share with our listeners. Something about a marathon?
Yeah, so we had a goal, my girlfriends and I, the Pirate Life podcast crew, we had a goal of running a full marathon, and this past Sunday was the day. We got up early, we had our own race route. We had looked for one to do a structured one that was timed somewhere else, and we just couldn't find a date, and it was kind of out of the side of our mouths. We're like, well, let's just make up our own. So we did.
Sounds like something you would do.
So we did. And we started at Dunkin' with our coffee in hand, and we ended at the Borough, and it was a long day. It was probably one of the hardest things I've done, but it was incredible.
Didn't you, I'm just not a runner, but didn't part of the way through, your legs just give out? I mean, explain to me how this works.
There were moments of doubt. The legs just you just keep convincing them that they can make it.
Well, Adrienne, from the Nightly News and myself personally, I am proud of you, and I know that that's something that you've been really wanting for a lot. You'd never run a marathon before, right?
No,
You've done
one.
half marathons before, but never a full one. So now, is it time for you to get the sticker for your car?
You know what? I feel like I might need one. I might have to do that.
Well, the only question that remains is, when's the next one?
We had a couple of people say something to us about doing it next year, and they want to join us. They want to run along. So there has been talk of making the Pirate Unicorn Marathon an annual tradition.
Any desire to do a New York or a Boston marathon?
Boston is amazing. Knowing the history behind that event, it would be amazing. You have to qualify. So I'd have to actually run a timed race first to qualify time-wise to be able to do Boston. But I wouldn't say I'd be against it. It hasn't hit the goal list yet, but it'd be amazing.
Well, I have to tell you, Adrienne, I'm so lucky that I'm a part in some very, very, very small way of the Pirate Life podcast. And I got to tell you, I'm so proud of you. And I was following your action on social media there, just, rooting for you in spirit. And I'm very proud of you. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And tune into the Pirate Life podcast. You can find them on Facebook.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, well, Adrienne, that's going to do it for the month of June. As always, thank you so much for spending your time down here with us. I know that this isn't necessarily in your job description, but you are here religiously every single month, and we appreciate that very much.
Well, thanks for having me, as always.
You're welcome. All right, that's going to do it for another Nightly News podcast, but stay tuned. Janet Bixler and the crew from the Central Penn Players will be back to talk Lost and Found. But in the meantime, thanks again go out to Student Engagement Director Adrienne Thoman. And Adrienne, we'll see you back here in July.
See you then.
All right, stay tuned for Janet Bixler, but for now, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News podcast.
This is Norman Geary, news correspondent. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast, the voice of the Knights.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we have a full house here in the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio here at the Boyer House of Central Penn College. As we have gotten into the habit of doing, Theatre Director Janet Bixler joins us the very last podcast of the term, previewing what is coming up later on in this term. So we are going to be talking about Lost and Found, the 5th annual student-created play that's coming up on June 6th, 7th, and 8th. At the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. So, Theater Director Bixler, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's always such a pleasure. We're also being joined in here by the president and vice president of the Central Penn Players, Parker Rose and Brianna McCoy. Parker, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back, Professor Miller. Thank you for having me.
And Brianna, this will be your second foray on the podcast this term. As you know, your most recent podcast was just released, and you did a very, very nice job on that. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. The first thing that I wanted to take a quick chat about here, Janet, is I want to take a look back at some of the most recent performances in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. The first wanted to bring up was the Coffee House series that ended our last term. Can you talk to us a little bit about the overall successes, maybe some things you learned, maybe some things if you were doing this again you might do a little differently?
Yes. Well, it was very successful. We had 2 nights of the Theatrical Coffee House where local published authors came and read excerpts from their work. We had a published poet perform several pieces of his poetry. We had the entire night filled with music, both original and other, from a local singer, songwriter, musician who played, this was a big favorite. Daryl Snyder, the musician, played musical instruments of all variety. And the students in the audience specifically really appreciated seeing all those different types of musical instruments and him using them. And then we had local actors perform selections from the classic Fahrenheit 451. Searching for happiness was the theme of the coffee house. And so all the pieces, the music, the poetry, the excerpts from the local authors, and of course, Fahrenheit 451 all spoke to how we as humans are constantly searching for happiness. The audience, we had full houses both nights. There wasn't really,
I went Thursday, I don't think there was any seats available. Everything was full. And to me, I know that obviously the product that you're putting out there is important, but to me, the full house, really, that's got to be one of the main goals as well, right?
Yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. And it was so much fun working with Bree McCoy and working with Robert McHugh and Tracy and Kendra Michelle to transform the theater, because we got donations upon donations upon donations of books, and we created stacks and stacks and stacks of books. We hung up special cafe lights. We created a coffee bar where we brought in a variety of coffees and pastries, and then we also had a wall of art filled with local art. So people were coming in for the whole experience of walking into a coffee house, and they could come back to the coffee bar during the readings, and it was really smooth. And what was so great, we had such an eclectic audience. And my students who were there attending it for class, that was one observation many of the students made in my class, how it was eclectic, how there were students there and faculty, and there were staff and community members in all different ages and people from all different walks of life. And one student specifically said he was surprised about how welcoming and how free it felt there, and how he felt very comfortable with the people around him.
I have to tell you something that Jackie wanted me to share with you. Jackie's my wife, and she comes to all of these things that you do in the theater. She said that outside of the musical, because First Date was still her favorite, that the coffee house was the most unique thing and the most enjoyable thing for her coming in and enjoying. And I would echo that. I thought the coffee house was extremely unique. I love local authors. I love supporting local authors. I just think it was extremely well done. Very, very nice spread of food and beverage. It was just fantastic. So I want to thank you so much.
And thank you for bringing that up, because we had a local art teacher who brought her 2 high school students over to read excerpts from...
They were amazing.
Yes, and they were only like 9th and 10th graders reading works from their colleagues from another program out of Los Angeles. But the art teacher brought her husband, who has never been to live theater, and he came up to me and he said, "Don't wait another year to do this. I want to come back. I want to experience this again." Now, I cannot forget to say that the whole evening was tied together with the 3 officers from the Central Penn Players, Parker and Bree and Taylor Lajak. They were the MCs with me, transitioning everybody on and off the stage. And it was just really lovely. And I really want to do it again.
Well, I certainly hope that we can do it again. The next thing that you've been working on, so Professor Mark Huntsberger has been busy here on campus over the last couple months. First, it started out with his CPC film series presentation of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which, again, I must say, one of the most really unique experiences. The movie itself to just watch, I mean, it's nearly 100 years old, and, you know, it's an interesting film. But what they did was just really transcendent, and the fact that Professor Huntsberger was able able to kind of describe to somebody who's never played music how they went about doing this with very, very limited rehearsal was really quite amazing. Also presented with Professor Maria Chow, her story, which just concluded recently, again, a huge hit. We wrote about it for the Nightly News, but can you talk about some of these experiences over the past month or so with Professor Huntsberger?
Yes. Well, because of the success of the coffee house and the setup that Bree and Robert were able to create, because logistically I could not do it, and I tried like 2 times, no lie. And they did a beautiful job setting the chairs and the table so it really worked. Well, I wanted to recreate that, so we turned the theater into a jazz lounge, and we had a mocktail bar.
Who was the bartender? Mr. Parker. Parker, did you come up with the drink menu?
Actually, Janet and I were both looking through recipes, and some of the pictures just caught my attention. And so what me and Janet did after we chose our beverages, we came up with names that were related to Professor Chow's and the music that was being performed in the show. And honestly, I think people were very pleased with their beverages, especially the Libra. When we were making, I will be honest, when we make it, like, when I tried, I was like, it was really strong, but a lot of people came up to me after, that was a very good beverage.
And we chose drinks that had multiple layers and ingredients. So Parker, Jaime, and Devin, who were the bartenders, all part of Drama Club, they were able to actually work like a bartender because they were mixing ingredients in front of the person buying it. It wasn't just juice and ginger ale,
right?
You know, but it was everything but alcohol. So it was really fun, and it was really well received. It was a fundraiser for the Drama Club.
And we made a good amount of cash sales with the bar too, with the cash bar. So I was very pleased with the whole night. It was a great event.
Very good idea. I think it's awesome. So how was the show itself received? Her story.
It was well received. And again, I had students there for my class, and they had to write a review on it. And one student again noted how eclectic the audience was and how much she appreciated that. It was really beautifully and well done. And it was a tight show. Mark would talk a little bit about the music and why he chose the selection he chose and how it connects to Maria's poetry. And then Maria would perform with the music behind or after. And then Maria would sometimes speak also about the story maybe within or behind the poetry and how they're relating back and forth. And it was just a beautiful flow. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I'm really glad that you had a nice experience. I really enjoyed the experiences that I've had both at the coffee house. I unfortunately was unable to attend her story, but I did make the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and I must say I was blown away. Well, let's move forward to the upcoming production. Again, Lost and Found, the 5th annual student-created play. This will take place on June 6th and 7th at 7:30, and a special matinee at 2:30 on June the 8th. So I'm going to kick it to Brianna first, because Brianna is in a very unique situation. Brianna, this is now your 3rd student-created play that you're going to have a part of, correct?
Yes, actually, I am, and I'm a little surprised at it because I would have seen how I evolved going through all the plays. Because the 3rd one, I was just backstage. I was just moving props, just helping everybody out, make sure they got out during the time they needed to. And then the next one, I was more of a character that connected everybody's stories. I was there because everybody needed me. I was the supporting character in that story. I never had an actual personal story in that. Janet, something to say?
Yes, Bree's character in the 4th student-created play where you weren't sharing your personal story, the one huge reason her character existed was to create the dramatic tension in the play, to bring home the deeper concept of what happens when we are stuck in the middle and refuse to get out.
But Brianna, talk about how you mentioned the evolution. So first show you are crew, second you're sort of the MC. Didn't necessarily share your personal, but you were a very integral piece in that. So can you, without giving too much away, can you just give us a little bit of background on what you're going to be doing in this particular play?
Well, I have a full Lost and Found story, like a very deep story too, like from my past. So I've really put everything, all emotions and everything that you guys don't naturally see into this show.
She becomes very vulnerable.
Yes.
That's something I can't imagine from you, I gotta tell you.
I know.
So Parker, we're gonna go to you because you are also a big part of working with the Lost and Found, and actually you were a big part of a mask workshop that happened recently. Talk a little bit about, maybe both of you can talk a little bit about the mask workshop, and maybe a better question is, why are the masks such an important part of this piece?
Yes, well, the mask workshop, when I first walked in, I thought it was just we were going to be doing mask work and all. And when I was observing, because I also wrote a story about it for Nightly News, and I must say I was so glad we took part in this workshop. We did so many improv activities. We moved our bodies in a way that I never imagined as an actor. And when we got to work with the mask, it was amazing because like the mask speaks to you when you put it on. Like I will look at a mask in one way and portray a character with it, and then Bree will look at that same mask and see a different aspect of it and participate. And same with Janet. And I'm just glad that Janet was able to bring
Terry Mastrobono.
Thank you. Her to come teach us how important it is. And did we go into the elements about how we're going to incorporate the mask?
Well, we aren't necessarily using the masks that we used. We aren't using the masks that we used in the workshop. The workshop uses very specific types of masks that originally were designed for Commedia dell'arte in Italy back in the days before the Renaissance. And the masks are shaped and formed in a very specific way that will connect to character types that the Italian theater would use when they would travel across the countryside and people would not be able to speak the same language. So they would be able to identify the characters because of the mask. And so each actor who wore that mask would play that character the same way. But when we as actors use the masks, it allows our imaginations to become unbridled, where we completely release our imagination and the mask will take control. And that's the ideal, because as an actor who thinks, then that actor is stifled on stage. You want to have a free mind, and the mask allows your mind to go free. And it also allows your body to become very big. So as actors in the student-created play who attended the mask workshop, they were there to feel what it was like to have your mind release and to have your body go big, so that they can then take it into this show, Lost and Found, because they are playing fairy tale characters that have to be big and broad at times, and then they also have to be deep and embedded in that emotion, and the actor must be able to play all that and still take on the style of the fairy tale.
Well, Brianna, something that's interesting here is the sort of theme. Obviously, the student-created plays are very unique, each individual one. This one happens to have involvement with twisted fairy tales. Can you walk through, maybe you and Parker, how you came up with this idea for this theme and what relevance that has to the CP players?
Looking back at all the other student creative plays we did, I felt like they were like really heavy. They were really great shows, right? But I felt like, the emotion was really heavy. And you know me, Miller, I can't get heavy with emotions unless it's anger, but we're not going to talk about that. But like, I was like, and we only allow 11 and up to come to the show because it's, under than that, it's not going to be appropriate for children
right.
Under than that. So I'm like...
So like a PG-13 type of situation.
Yeah, but I have family younger than that, and I want my family to understand it. Plus, I want it to be colorful because I'm a little strange like that. So I was like, let's bring it to the fairy tale side, something that we've never done, right? Well, I don't know if you ever did that, but something that we've never done. And I'm like, okay, let's change it up. Let's bring something different, because we usually always see dark colors or something, something a little, I don't want to say gothic, but, just a lot of black or gray. So, like, let's just bring some flashing lights, some purple, yellow. Let's make this a happy thing. Because at the end, we all find, this little, I don't want to say happily ever after, but, you'll see the show.
Of course, all fairy tales, though, have happily ever after. So I guess almost everybody's probably anticipating that. Parker, what thought process did you have when you were coming up with this idea of twisted fairy tales?
Well, actually, I didn't come up with the idea. It was actually Bree and Taylor. Taylor actually brought up the idea of fairy tales. And I'll be honest, when I first heard about it, I was like, I don't know how we're going to incorporate fairy tales in a lost and found moment. But when I came back from my absence for 2 weeks, I see how...
And we can talk about what that absence is about, Parker. You were doing something very special. It's not that you were just shirking your collegiate duties. What were you doing for those 2 weeks?
I was performing my military duties up at the Gap.
So you say that. Don't say when I was absent, because that makes you sound like that you were absent for some other reason. You had a pretty darn good reason to be absent.
Yes, I was doing military duties.
So when you came back, Brianna and Taylor had already talked about this. What input did you have?
Well, when I first came back and Janet was telling me about how it was shaping up, it sounded very interesting, and Janet was trying to get me hooked on board to come back and perform. And at first I didn't know because of how busy I was, having to making up work and other commitments with other clubs. But Janet pitched an idea, and I decided, you know what, maybe doing this part in the show will help. And when I started attending rehearsals, I realized how all these stories are shaping together. And right now in our rehearsal process, I'm very excited to be aside with all the other actors in the show to perform the show.
Now, Janet, I had a question for you. You'd mentioned in our pre-show meeting something called devised theater. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit more about that and how that might apply to this show.
So all the student-created works fall under the genre of devised theater, where it is theater created through the collaboration of the participants in the ensemble. And it's devised, it's created, it's in the moment. No one has written it before. Devised theater is often difficult because, well, we have an added obstacle because time is completely of the essence. I have a theater colleague out in the community who just did a devised piece. I didn't tell you guys this. Who did a devised piece of theater. They had 7 months to create it. We have
7 weeks?
Okay, we'll be generous and we'll say 7 weeks to create it, right? So there's that element, but also with devised theater, you're usually going to look at a deep topic, or you take a topic and you look at it in a deep way, and you are looking to interpret it and find meaning from within. And with devised theater, there's always a personal connection to the work. And it might be very personal like we do, because we always use personal true stories on the topic. This time, the topic is lost and found. Some devised theater will be very broad in the personal connection, and they will use other types of material and then just draw a tiny bit of the personal stuff. But we always go deep. So this year's is unique. We have 5 actors in the show. We have 6 ensemble members, but only 5 are in the show each night. Only 3 of those actors are sharing their deep personal stories. One reason being that their stories of lost and found are so deep. They actually span years and years. And as a result of that, the years and years of their lives that this lost experience takes over, layers and layers and layers of consequences from that initial loss come into play. And the 3 women who share their lost and found stories have experienced a whole variety of loss as a result of that first experience. And as I said, it spans many, many years in their lives. And then it takes a substantial amount of time for each of these 3 women to come to terms with, what did I find as a result of that loss? And the find being the benefit. So it takes a lot of self-awareness. So the 3 women who are the actors giving their stories over to the show, Brianna McCoy and Marnie Baker and Abigail Doherty, they did a lot of work at the table and a lot of work with the counselors under Tom Palmieri's direction, because it was a lot of personal, vulnerable stuff. And this all came about partly for 2 reasons, meaning looking at what did we find as a result of what we lost from both Parker and Bree. Parker said, this show is going to end on a happy ending, because when you lose something and then find something, the finding is often always very good. So we really kept that in mind. So these deep things that our women have gone through that they lost, we could look at the negative things that they found. But they have gone deep to see, well, what did I actually benefit from? That's an amazing level of self-awareness. And through devised theater, you really become so much more self-aware as a human. And then Bree had said, and Taylor with the fairy tale idea, well, in fairy tales, the characters are always on a quest. They're always fighting an obstacle. And there's always a bit of magic that will help the hero battle the obstacle and find the reward. And when we look at their personal lost and found stories, that is what happened. And while we may not believe in magic in real life, what these 3 women have inside of them to be able to find the reward from the lost is phenomenal. Oh my goodness. And then they're able theatrically to play this out through twisted fairy tales.
Well, I do want to ask Parker. Parker, how are you involved in the show?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I said about me being on my military orders and all, and coming back in week 3 of the term, I didn't know how I was going to make time to be in the play. So I walked in Janet's office to say, hello again, I'm back. And she started throwing sales pitches at me. Not like business, but trying to be funny. Like she said, well, how about we put you in a role like this? And she said about a ninja actor. And from my experience from the previous student created play, I didn't know what a ninja actor was. So Janet elaborated how a ninja actor is an actor that plays multiple characters in multiple scenes of a show. So I was like, you know what? It'd fit my schedule. So I decided, okay, let's do it. When I started like doing the rehearsaling and all with the ninja actor aspect, I really enjoy it. Because in one scene, you're a character that could be a face, a good person, willing to help. And then all of a sudden, you could be a heel or a bad person, and the audience will see you as rude, disrespectful, and are disliked. So being able to play both sides of the field in that aspect, I think it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well,
and the great thing about Parker and the ninja actor, they being those characters, but Parker, the actor, and Destiny, which we need to mention, they as ninja actors provide so much of the comedic relief because it was so important for them, the students, to bring comedy into the show because the stories are so heavy and because they're twisted fairy tales. We can keep playing with the comedic element of it as well, even though when we're going really deep. Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed.
Well, we wish you the best of luck for Lost and Found. Again, June 6th and 7th at 7:30, June 8th, a special matinee at 2:30 at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. I will put the link for tickets along with this event, but you can always check out Capitol Blue Cross Theater at Central Penn College on Facebook for more information, right? Well, before we get out of here, I did want to just throw it ahead to summer term and our upcoming show in September. Janet, would you like to speak a little bit about what that show may entail?
Yes. The Capitol Blue Cross Theater is partnering with the Sankofa African American Theater Company in Harrisburg to produce an original work created by the artistic executive director of Sankofa, Sharia Ben. She found an artifact, a photograph from history. And from that photograph, which I cannot describe, it will give the show away, she has created a play. And the play is called Bridge the Gap. As a result of her seeing the play Reclaiming My Time in our theater, she commissioned Maria Chow to create original poetry, about 20 pieces, to complement the play that she is creating. The play is called Bridge the Gap, and it speaks of a young woman who is the bridge to her family, the bridge to her where she lives in the Northeast, to her family down south. She is the bridge to the past and to secrets, and she is the bridge to unthinkable crimes, and she is the bridge to possibly healing. Oh, there's so many amazing things about this show, which will go up in September, but we will be having auditions in late June. Some great things about this show is that the theater, Capitol Blue Cross Theater, is a black box theater which we can rearrange in many different ways. Sharia has come up with a vision to rearrange it in a way I have not done. And I'll just say it uses the diagonal line in the audience. I'm so excited about that. And also, she has decided to create the play that it ends on a cliffhanger, which I know Parker loves. And the audience actually has to interact with each other and make a decision of how they want it to end, and then the actors will play out that ending for them.
That is so cool.
There will be 5 performances. You literally could come to each performance and see a different ending.
I love it. I think I remember the old Choose Your Own Adventure books. They were my favorite when I was a kid. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for another Nightly News podcast. But Janet, as always, we look forward to having you back here in the summer. We'll talk much more about your summer offering and maybe a little bit more about that Choose Your Own Adventure with the end. So first off, of course, Janet, as always, I want to thank you so much for taking your time down here to be a part of the Nightly News podcast.
Well, thank you for supporting the Capitol Blue Cross Theater.
Wouldn't dream any other way. And of course, Parker and Bree, thank you so much for your experiences, for your time with the things that are going on in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. You're doing amazing, amazing work. I absolutely love when I get to come down and see what you guys are up to. So thank you both for taking time out of your day to be here and talk about Lost and Found.
Thank you for having
both of us.
Yeah. And thank you for, like what Jen said, thank you for supporting the theater.
What is a college community if it's not a supportive one, right?
I like that point.
Yes.
All right, well, that's it for another episode of the Nightly News Podcast. We'll see you again at the beginning of next term because this is our last podcast for the term. But for Parker Rose and Brianna McCoy of the CP Players and Theater Director Janet Bixler, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you again in July.